Evelyn sat on the couch in the small living room, her hands trembling slightly as she held the positive pregnancy test. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. After 10 months of dating, she thought she was ready to share this news with John, her boyfriend. She always imagined he would react with a mix of surprise and joy. When John arrived, his expression seemed distant, as if something heavy occupied his mind. Evelyn approached hesitantly, holding the pregnancy test behind her back. "John, we need to talk," she began, her voice trembling. He looked at her, a flicker of concern passing quickly through his eyes. "What's wrong, Evelyn?" She took a deep breath and, in a swift motion, showed him the test. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, time seemed to stop. Lucas remained silent, his eyes fixed on the test. What happened next was something Evelyn could never have predicted. John shook his head slowly, stepping away from her. "Evelyn, I can't do this." "What do you mean, John? We've been together for 10 months. I thought you'd be happy," she said, tears already beginning to form. He sighed deeply, avoiding her gaze. "I'm moving to another city with another woman. I met someone at work and this is what I want." The ground seemed to disappear beneath Evelyn's feet. "You're leaving me now? Right now?" "I didn't know how to tell you," he said, his voice low and full of guilt. "But I can't stay." "I'm sorry, Evelyn." Pain cut through Evelyn's heart like a sharp blade. John turned and left, leaving her alone with the unbearable weight of his decision. The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of Evelyn's sobs as she tried to process the devastating reality she now faced. She fell to her knees on the living room floor, her eyes fixed on the door Lucas had walked out of. From that moment on, Evelyn knew she would have to face the biggest battle of her life alone. After the devastating abandonment by her boyfriend, Evelyn felt completely alone and helpless. The nights were endless, filled with tears and despair, but in the darkness she found a small light. Placing her hands on her belly, she felt an indescribable bond with the child growing inside her. "I will protect you, my love," she murmured, determined to face any obstacle to ensure her baby's well-being. With no other options, Evelyn decided she needed to work tirelessly. She found 2 jobs to support herself and her unborn child. During the day, she worked as a waitress at a small local cafe. She woke up before sunrise, fighting against the fatigue and sadness that accompanied her. Her feet ached, her back ached, but she continued, serving cups of coffee with a forced smile on her face. The night, after a quick rest, Evelyn started her second shift as a cashier at a supermarket. The hours dragged on slowly, and each customer seemed to bring a new layer of exhaustion and frustration. The trivial conversations and looks of pity were hard to bear, but Evelyn kept her head up. She knew that every penny earned was essential for her baby's future. On a particularly difficult day, Evelyn had a conversation with her coworker, Marissa, at the cafe. "You look exhausted, Evelyn. Don't you think you're pushing yourself too hard?" Marissa asked, concern in her eyes. Evelyn sighed, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. "I don't have a choice, Marissa. I have to do this for my baby. He needs me." Marissa took Evelyn's hand and looked into her eyes. "I admire your strength, Evelyn. If you need anything, I'm here." Evelyn smiled, grateful for the support. Though she was exhausted and often desperate, she refused to give up. Each day was a battle, but she knew she was fighting for something bigger than herself. The love for her unborn child was the strength that kept her going, even when everything seemed to be falling apart around her. And so, Evelyn continued her arduous journey day after day with the hope of a better future for her and her baby. Each step she took was a testament to her unwavering determination and the deep love she felt for the child she was about to bring into the world. Evelyn heard her baby's first cry as a distant sound, muffled by exhaustion and worry. Little Emma was born prematurely and had to stay in the hospital, her fragility requiring intensive care. The image of her child so small and vulnerable inside the incubator was a constant blow to her already aching heart. Each day was a marathon. Evelyn woke up early, her body heavy with fatigue, to fulfill her shift at the cafe. The work, which was already exhausting, became even harder with the constant worry in her mind. She rushed to the hospital during her break, just to spend a few minutes by Emma's side, holding her tiny hand through the glass of the incubator. "You are strong, my love," Evelyn whispered, trying to hold back tears. "We will get through this together." At night, Evelyn swapped the cafe apron for the supermarket uniform. The night shift was a brutal challenge, each minute feeling like an eternity while her thoughts were always with Emma. But she had no choice. She needed the money to support her daughter and pay the growing medical expenses. In the hospital, the doctors kept her informed about Emma's progress, but the news was a mix of hope and uncertainty. Evelyn sat beside the incubator, trying to absorb the technical information, but all that really mattered was seeing her daughter improve. "How is she today, doctor?" Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. She's stable, but she still needs a lot of care, the doctor replied with a look of compassion. Evelyn clung to any sign of progress, no matter how small. Emma's weight increased slowly, and each extra gram was a victory celebrated silently with tears of relief. However, taking care of herself was a task she often neglected. Time to eat or rest was scarce. Friends and co-workers occasionally offered help, but Evelyn was stubbornly independent, determined not to be a burden to anyone. "You need to rest, Evelyn," insisted a co-worker, seeing her exhaustion. "Emma needs me more," Evelyn responded with a sad smile. Path was hard, and each day brought new challenges. Evelyn's life became a constant battle, but the strength she found within herself was fueled by the unconditional love she felt for her daughter. And so she continued day after day, facing whatever came, always with the hope that at some point things would get better. Evelyn was sitting in the small chair next to the incubator, the constant sound of monitors around creating a symphony of anxiety in her mind. Emma's tiny face, her thin and fragile skin, seemed so vulnerable. Every day, Evelyn held that tiny hand, waiting and praying for her daughter to leave that place. Finally, one day, the doctor entered the room with a gentle smile. "Evelyn, Emma is ready to go home." The words seemed unreal, as if she were dreaming. She looked at the doctor with wide eyes. "You mean today?" The doctor nodded. "Yes, she has gained enough weight and is breathing well on her own." Evelyn felt a mixture of relief and fear. Emma was finally leaving the hospital, but now a new battle was beginning. She gathered her few belongings and carefully dressed Emma in her first little dress, which looked enormous on her. Holding her daughter in her arms, Evelyn left the hospital, the sun shining outside, a strange contradiction to the storm in her heart. At home, the routine was a constant race against time. During the day, she divided her time between feeding Emma, changing diapers, and trying to soothe her. Every cry seemed like an emergency, every cough a reason for alarm. The weight of responsibility was immense, but Evelyn had no choice but to endure. At night, she left Emma with the elderly neighbor, the only one who offered to help. "I'll take care of her as if she were my granddaughter," the lady said with a kind smile. Evelyn thanked her, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, Mrs. Rosa. I don't know what I would do without you." At work, she moved like an automaton, preparing coffees and cleaning tables at the cafe. Each customer who entered seemed to bring with them a new burden. The exhaustion was a constant shadow, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Emma's face, and that kept her going. A coworker, a young and carefree guy, noticed her fatigue. "Are you okay, Evelyn?" She forced a smile. "I am. I just need to keep going." But the nights were long and the days even longer. Each day was a struggle to balance everything, and each night a battle against exhaustion. But through it all, the love for Emma gave Evelyn the strength to keep going, even when everything seemed impossible. The rain was falling heavily, forming deep puddles in the streets. Evelyn, with a flimsy umbrella that barely protected her, held Emma tightly in her arms, trying to hurry to the daycare. Little Emma whimpered, bothered by the cold and wetness. In the middle of the storm, Evelyn barely saw the black car approaching. In a second, it splashed through a huge puddle, drenching her legs and nearly hitting Emma. Soaked and exhausted, Evelyn couldn't hold back her anger. "Hey, watch out!" she shouted, furious. Holy crap, the car stopped a few yards ahead and started backing up. Evelyn hugged Emma tighter, her heart pounding. What if it was some creep? Car window rolled down slowly, showing a dude with a worried look. "Shoot, I didn't see you there." "You guys okay?" he asked, sounding genuinely concerned. Evelyn hesitated, still feeling sketchy about the situation. "We're fine. Just in a rush." The guy glanced at the pouring rain and then at the baby in her arms. "You can't keep walking in this downpour. Come on, let me give you a lift." Evelyn looked around, weighing her options. She was beat, soaked to the bone, and Emma was getting fussy. With a sigh, she decided to take a chance. "All right, thanks." She hopped in the car carefully, feeling the heater's warmth right away. The guy, who introduced himself as Tom, flashed a friendly smile. "Where are you headed?" "Emma's daycare, then work," Evelyn replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. During the short ride, they made small talk. Tom seemed like a nice guy and genuinely worried. He mentioned having a daughter a bit older than Emma, which kinda put Evelyn at ease. When they got to the daycare, Tom offered to wait while Evelyn dropped Emma off. She took him up on it, grateful. Back in the car, Tom kept chatting. "You know, I live nearby. If you ever need anything, just holler," he said, dropping her off at her place. Evelyn smiled shyly, thanking him again. "Thanks a ton, Tom. You really saved my bacon today." In the days that followed, Tom started regularly swinging by the daycare at the same time as Evelyn, always with a kind smile and offering a ride. first, Evelyn was on the fence, her street smarts making her wary. But over time, Tom's consistency and kindness started to break down that wall. On a particularly chilly morning, while Evelyn was walking on the sidewalk with Emma in her arms, she spotted Tom's familiar ride approaching. He pulled up beside her, rolled down the window, and asked softly, "Need a lift today?" Evelyn looked at Tom's sincere face, feeling a connection she couldn't quite explain. With a sigh, she finally caved. "All right. Thanks, Tom." During their rides, they started to open up. First, it was small talk. The weather, daily grind, the challenges of raising a kid solo. Tom, in turn, gradually spilled the beans about his own life, marked by emotional scars and a complicated past that still weighed on him. "You know, Evelyn," Tom said one day as the car inched through city traffic, "I admire your grit. Raising Emma on your own, working your butt off, it can't be easy." Evelyn, touched by the realness in Tom's words, replied with a slightly shaky voice. "It's no walk in the park, but it's what I gotta do." For her, it's worth it. The friendship between Evelyn and Tom blossomed, built on countless rides and heart-to-hearts. On a particularly gloomy afternoon, Evelyn and Tom were sitting in his car, parked in front of Emma's daycare. The rain was beating a steady rhythm against the windows, creating a soothing sound. Tom looked at Evelyn, hesitation obvious in his eyes. He took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. "I was married. My wife, she passed away 2 years ago in a car wreck." Evelyn stayed quiet, feeling the pain in his words. She reached out and held his hand, offering wordless comfort. "She left behind a daughter, our daughter, Lily. She's 3 now," he continued, his voice cracking slightly. "Since my wife died, her mom's been trying to get custody of Lily. She thinks I can't hack it on my own." Evelyn felt her heart sink. "Tom, I'm so sorry. That must be awful." Tom nodded, squeezing her hand. "Yeah, I just want to do right by Lily, but it's been one hell of a fight. And meeting you, Evelyn, it's been a ray of sunshine in my life." Evelyn looked at him, her eyes full of empathy and understanding. "Tom, you're a good dad. I can see that. And you're not alone. I've got your back, whatever you need." Tom smiled, a sad but grateful smile. "Thanks, Evelyn. That means the world to me." The rain kept falling, but inside the car there was a growing warmth, a deep connection between two souls scarred by hardship and fighting to find a new path. On a sunny Sunday, Evelyn decided to take Emma to the park. Tom showed up with his daughter, grinning when he saw Evelyn and Emma already playing on the green grass. Kids ran to the playground, giggling together, while Evelyn and Tom sat on a nearby bench, watching them. "They seem to be hitting it off," Evelyn commented with a soft smile. Tom nodded, looking at Evelyn. "Yeah, it's good to see them like this. Happy." The sun shone brighter, warming up the afternoon. Kids, oblivious to the adults, kept playing while Evelyn and Tom chatted. The words flowed naturally. Tom held Evelyn's hand and gently pulled her closer. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, wrapped in a bubble of unspoken emotions. Their eyes met, and in that moment, without needing words, they both knew. Knew that their friendship had turned into something deeper. Slowly, Tom leaned in and, in a hesitant but sure gesture, his lips met Evelyn's. It was a soft, tender kiss, but loaded with all the emotions they'd been holding back. In the background, the sound of the kids' laughter and the whisper of wind in the trees made the scene seem unreal, like it belonged in a dream. When they pulled apart, both were smiling, their eyes shining with a new understanding. "Finally," Tom murmured with a tender smile. Evelyn laughed softly, feeling a happiness she hadn't known in a long time. "Yeah, finally." The afternoon continued, with the kids running and playing while Evelyn and Tom, now holding hands, felt that despite all the challenges, they had found something truly special in that sunny park. Tom and Evelyn started dating, but their happiness was far from perfect. Tom's mother, a woman with a stern face and judgmental look, didn't accept the relationship at all. She rejected Emma, making nasty and prejudiced comments about their backgrounds whenever she had the chance. "That kid will never be part of our family, she doesn't have our blood. They're gonna bleed you dry, son." Her words were sharp as knives, leaving Evelyn on the verge of tears. Tom, seeing the pain in Evelyn's eyes, confronted his late wife's mother. "Enough, Mom. Emma and Evelyn are my family now. Your prejudice is unacceptable and cruel. If you keep this up, you won't have a place in our lives." His mother turned red with anger, but Tom stood his ground. He held Evelyn's hand, which was shaking with emotion. "We're not gonna let anyone tear us apart, Evelyn. We'll face everything together," he said with determination, looking deep into her eyes. Evelyn, despite the difficulties, felt a wave of strength and hope by Tom's side. Together, they were ready to face any obstacle that came their way, determined to protect the family they were building despite the adversities. Evelyn, despite the difficulties, felt a wave of strength and hope alongside Tom. Together, they were ready to face any obstacle that came their way, determined to protect the family they were building despite the adversities. A few weeks later, it was time to finally resolve who would get custody of Lily. Courtroom was packed, the air heavy with the tension of lives about to change forever. Evelyn sat rigidly, her hands trembling slightly as she held Tom's. Across the aisle, Margaret glared at them with a cold stare, her posture impeccable. The judge entered, and silence fell over the room like a shroud. The following hours were a blur of testimonies, accusations, and passionate defenses. Margaret painted a picture of Tom as an inadequate father, manipulated by Evelyn, a woman of dubious origin. Her words cut deep, each one a stab to Evelyn's heart. During a recess, Tom found Evelyn in the hallway, his eyes reflecting the fear she felt. "What if she wins?" Evelyn whispered, her voice breaking. "What if we lose custody of Lily?" Tom hugged her tightly, his own tears threatening to fall. "We won't lose. We can't lose. Lily is our little girl." Back in the courtroom, Tom and Evelyn's lawyer presented evidence of the couple's dedication, their unconditional love for Lily, and Margaret's toxic interference in their lives. Witnesses spoke about the loving environment Tom and Evelyn provided, in contrast to Margaret's coldness and prejudice. The hours dragged on, each minute a torture. Emma and Lily, unaware of the drama unfolding, played quietly with a babysitter in the hallway, their occasional laughter a painful reminder of what was at stake. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the judge was ready to deliver his verdict. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the sound of Evelyn's heart pounding in her ears. "After careful consideration," the judge began, his voice echoing in the room, "this court grants full custody of Lily Hartley to Thomas Hartley." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Evelyn looked at Tom, incredulous, as tears finally fell freely. Tom hugged her tightly, both sobbing with relief and joy. From across the room, Margaret's scream of rage pierced the air. "This is outrageous. You can't do this. He is not fit to raise a child. She needs me, her grandmother." "Margaret, mother," he said softly. "It's time to move on. You'll have visitation rights on the agreed days." Leaving the courthouse, Tom and Evelyn found the girls in the hallway. Lily ran to them, laughing as she was lifted into her father's arms. As they walked into the sunlight, they knew they had won more than just a court case. They had earned the right to be a family, to raise Lily and Emma with love and without interference. The road ahead would still be challenging, and the wounds from this battle would take time to heal completely. But together, as a united family, they were ready to face whatever obstacles the future might bring. 2 years had passed since the courtroom nightmare, and life finally seemed to have found its rhythm. The office buzzed with the activity of a typical Friday afternoon. Evelyn typed furiously, trying to finish a report before the end of the day. Her thoughts occasionally drifted to the dinner Tom was preparing at home and the smiles of Emma and Lily when she picked them up from school. The phone on her desk rang, breaking her concentration. "Miss Santos, there's a man here insisting on seeing you. He says it's urgent." The receptionist's voice sounded hesitant. Evelyn frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. "Who is it?" "He says his name is John." Evelyn's blood ran cold. John. A name she hadn't heard in years, a name that belonged to a past she had fought so hard to forget. "Send him in," she said, her voice barely disguising the tremor. John entered, looking older and more worn than she remembered. His eyes, however, still carried that dangerous glint that had once fascinated her. "Hello, Evelyn," he said, a crooked smile playing on his lips. "Long time no see." Evelyn stood up, her legs trembling slightly. "What do you want, John?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I heard you're doing well now. Married to a rich guy, aren't you?" "That's none of your business," Evelyn replied, trying to maintain her composure. "Why are you here?" John laughed, a harsh sound that sent shivers down Evelyn's spine. "Always straight to the point, aren't you?" "Well, I'm here to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" Evelyn asked, fearing the answer. "The kind that involves money," John said, his eyes gleaming with malice. "In exchange for my discretion about certain matters from the past. And, of course, my renunciation of any rights over Emma." Evelyn felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "What are you talking about? You have no rights over Emma." John leaned in closer, his breath hot on Evelyn's face. "Are you sure about that, dear? And I'm sure your rich husband would love to know about our little secret." Evelyn's world began to spin. Memories she had buried deep resurfaced. Nights of fear and uncertainty, the discovery of her pregnancy, the desperate escape from a life that was suffocating her. "How much?" she whispered, hating herself for giving in but knowing she had no choice. John smiled, savoring his victory. "We'll start with 100 grand. And after that, well, we'll see." Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. How would she tell Tom? How would she explain that the past she had tried so hard to leave behind now threatened to destroy everything they had built? "You have a week," John said, heading for the door. "Don't keep me waiting, Evelyn. You know I'm not a patient man." When the door closed behind him, Evelyn collapsed into her chair, silent tears streaming down her face. The phone rang again. It was Tom, asking if she was on her way home. Evelyn wiped away the tears, forcing a normal tone into her voice. "I'm leaving now, love," she said, knowing that her life was about to change drastically once again. Clock read 3:17 a.m. when Evelyn, unable to sleep, finally found the courage to tell Tom about John. The words came out in broken sobs as she trembled in her husband's arms. He threatened to tell everything, Tom. About Emma, about the past. I didn't know what to do. Tom hugged her tighter, his mind reeling. "Why didn't you tell me before, Eve?" "I was scared," she whispered. "Scared of losing all of this, of losing you." Tom spent the night awake, consoling Evelyn and planning their next steps. In the morning, he made a call. "Detective Ramirez?" "Tom Hartley. I need your help." In the days that followed, Tom and Detective Ramirez worked tirelessly. They discovered that John was wanted for a series of crimes in 3 different states. "We'll get him, Tom," Ramirez assured. "But we need Evelyn to cooperate." Pale and exhausted, Evelyn agreed to set up a meeting with John. The location: an empty parking lot at a nearby shopping center. On the appointed night, Evelyn waited in the car, her heart pounding in her chest. Tom and Detective Ramirez's team were hidden nearby, ready to act. John arrived, his arrogant smile barely hiding the greed in his eyes. "Did you bring my money, darling?" Evelyn swallowed hard. "Can't we settle this another way?" He laughed, a cold sound that echoed through the empty parking lot. "There's no other way, Evelyn. Either you pay or I take the girl to meet my friends." That moment, the area was flooded with the lights of several police cars. Caught by surprise, John tried to run but was quickly surrounded. "John Crow," Detective Ramirez's voice boomed through a megaphone. "You're under arrest." As the officers handcuffed John, Tom ran to Evelyn, enveloping her in his arms. "It's over, my love," he whispered. "It's over." Evelyn buried her face in Tom's chest, her tears soaking his shirt. "Yes, it's over, love. Let's live our life to the end." As the police cars drove away, their lights flashing in the night, Evelyn and Tom remained embraced in the empty parking lot. The nightmare was over, but the scars would remain. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with painful truths and trust to be rebuilt. But in that moment, under the silent stars, they had each other. And for now, that was enough. The park bench remained forever marked in their lives, their first kiss, the first of many.